Hello and welcome to Hammer Time, a Hammer horror podcast, part of the Evolution of Horror Network. I'm Becky Darke, a film critic and Hammer fang girl, and I'm joined by my co-host, human encyclopedia of film and TV and Hammer superfan, Kevin Lyons. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Becky. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks.
Good.
Yeah.
I should perhaps point out, Mike's going to work his magic on this, but if you can hear a constant whirring in the background, we are actually recording in what turns out to be quite appropriate tropical temperatures today.
Quite right.
We are going for the full immersive sweating ourselves to death in Egypt feeling, so...
It does feel like that.
It does.
Yeah, in our little, before we hit record, our little preamble with producer Mike, I said, right guys, just give me a second, I'm going to have to turn my fan and my aircon off. And Mike very kindly said, no, it's all right, just turn the more noisy one off.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, yeah, much like an ancient Egyptian prince, I would be a mummified husk by the end of this recording.
Crumbling away to nothing by the end of it, yes.
In this podcast, Kevin and I are watching and discussing every horror film in Hammer's back catalogue. And this week we are, as Kevin says, back in Egypt once again as more silly archaeologists unearth an ancient curse in the mummy's shroud from 1967.
An ancient curse comes to life to strangle the living and raise the dead.
Our Hammer Time discussions are all spoilerific, and we go into plot details and chat about the endings of the films. So if you'd like to watch The Mummy's Shroud before you listen to the episode, you can rent it on Apple TV, or you can get it on Blu-ray from Hammer and Studio Canal. So a couple of different ways that you can watch that, either online or in physical. Kev, we spoke... I think last week, about Frankenstein created woman.
Yeah.
And at that point, we were 3 years out from the last film in the Frankenstein mini franchise. And we've got the same thing here with The Mummy, because we are 3 years out from the Curse of the Mummy's Tomb.
Oh, yes. The less said about
Curse of the Mummy's Tomb.
Yes.
Which we didn't love.
We didn't, no.
So what's the story behind the latest Mummy movie?
I have to be completely honest and tell you that I don't really know, and I've not been able to find out why Hammer decided another Mummy film, to be honest.
Oh!
It just seemed like it was a good idea to them. I would like to think that they were sitting around the boardroom at Hammer House or up there at Bray Studios and thinking, we've got to do something to make up for the Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. We can't let that one be our last Mummy film, can we? So we're going to make a better one. And I think they do here. So I don't quite know why they chose to do it, but I'm sort of glad they did.
Yeah.
I'm sort of glad they did.
I agree with that. We'll come on to talk about our thoughts in a sec, but definitely a step up, I think, this one.
I think so. And it was important to Hammer in a way, in retrospect, because it was the last film, the last one that they made at Bray Studios before fully decamping off to Elstree.
Was it really?
So this is kind of the end of an era.
God, it is. God,
in many
it really
ways.
is.
I think I mentioned last week, didn't I, that we're going to be saying goodbye to a lot of people in our story over the coming weeks. We're actually saying goodbye to one of the biggest characters of the lot. We're saying goodbye to Bray Studios this week.
Yeah.
So, so it is kind of the last chance we'll get to see those tiny little sets being put to amazing use.
That's right. That's right. Amazing stuff. Well, we will miss you, Bray. Thank you for your service.
Miss you. Yes, quite right.
So let's talk about the plot of the movie. Archaeologists discover the final resting place of a boy king, removing the remains to be exhibited in a museum. Because of course they do.
Of course they do.
By disturbing the sarcophagus, they unleash the forces of darkness. Because of course they do. The mummy has returned to discharge a violent retribution on the defilers as the curse that surrounds the tomb begins to come true. One by one, the explorers are murdered until one of them discovers the ancient words that have the power to reduce the brutal killer to particles of dust. Now, all of that sounds extremely familiar. Not a million miles away from the plots of the other Mummy movies that we have covered so far on the pod. And I think I'm definitely on record as not having loved either the original Mummy.
That's right, yeah.
And definitely not Curse from the Mummy's Tomb,
No.
which I thought was naff.
I think the problem is, and Hammer never got over this, really. The Mummy's quite a limiting monster.
Yeah.
You know, it's this guy wrapped in bandages who gets up and staggers about a bit like a zombie, but there's only one of him.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like zombie films at their best work when there's dozens and hundreds of them and there's no escape, you know, and when they're using it for sort of satire and allegory, which Mummy films don't really lend themselves to very well, I don't think.
No, I agree with that, definitely. They're a bit more limited in their scope. So when you're sort of reading out the plot of, you know, the third one we're covering and it sounds a bit similar, I guess there's not a huge amount really that you can do otherwise.
No, exactly.
And it still be kind of like recognizable as, you know, as a Mummy film. You know, you've got the ancient remains, you've got some archaeologists, there's a curse. That's always going to be the kind of central conceit, and it's sort of what you can sort of experiment with a little around that, I suppose, and sort of build it out a bit with, you know, your different characters and that kind of thing.
Indeed. And it's good. Actually, when you were talking just now about saying, of course they did, you know, when they were doing all these things, it does remind me that these films kind of work best when they're set in the 1920s or earlier, because like a lot of horror films, you do end up sort of watching them ones set in more modern day. I'm thinking of a couple of recent ones, which I didn't like. Mm-hmm. But you kind of watch them and you think, well, have these people never seen a Mummy movie?
Yeah.
Do they know not to go stick their noses in that bloody tomb and start digging stuff up? I mean, come on, you know. At least if they're set in the 1920s, we can at least justify that they've never seen a Mummy film because, you know, there weren't that many at that time and whatever. But, yeah, it is... they do follow a very rigid set of rules until they don't. And then when they don't work at all.
Right, exactly.
Which is a really odd sort of setup. There was one multinational film called Dawn of the Mummy, from the early 1980s, and from the title you might be able to guess that we're going for a Dawn of the Dead approach.
Oh.
And that does have a slightly more interesting take on the Mummy, that they are much more like zombies. There are a lot of them shuffling about killing people. But then you kind of watching it, you're thinking, well, it's not really a Mummy film, is it?
Right, exactly.
It's a zombie film. And so it's a very strange subgenre, the Mummy movie.
Yeah, it
really
is.
It's one of my least favourite movie monsters, I think. I love the idea of them. I think I mentioned in earlier episodes, I live, you know, sort of walking distance from the British Museum.
Yeah.
I've quite often gone in there over lunchtime and just sat and stared at the dead bodies in cases. You know, I'm fascinated by all of that, but I just find that they don't make for the most exciting of movie monsters.
No, and I definitely agree with that. And I've got to admit, when I saw on the schedule that we were coming up to another Mummy movie, I was a bit like, oh, God, this is going to be a struggle. But I'm extremely pleased to report that this is surprisingly good, and I actually had a really good time with it.
It is. I mean, it's a film that breaks no new ground, like you said. Unlike The Archaeologist, it's breaking no new ground.
Lovely.
It's nice, that, wasn't it? I've just thought that one off the top of my head. I've impressed myself there. But it doesn't do anything that we haven't seen before. You've said that, and that's absolutely right. But it does it in a really entertaining way.
It does.
It's one of those films where every time I watch it, I enjoy it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. After watching it for this episode, I upped my Letterboxd rating.
Did you?
Yeah. The last time I saw it, I thought it was okay. It was all right. Nothing special. This time, I really actually quite enjoyed it. I thought, you know, like I say, if you get past the idea that there's nothing new here whatsoever, and even the climax, in a way, is nicked from Dracula.
Yeah, it is.
You know, the whole thing reeks of second-handness. You know, basically it's older than the Mummy itself. The story here, you know, it's an odd one. But having said all that, I kind of like it. It gets off to a very bad start with its interminable, very cheap-looking flashback.
Oh my goodness.
I just find it just rumbles on and on. I just, come on, hurry up, get on with it. I want to see the mummy.
Yeah,
come on.
yeah.
You know, sort of, can you not spread this out across the film? Sort of just have people deliver it in dialogue or something.
It's really odd because it's kind of it's narrated like a story being told.
That's right.
As you say, this flashback, which does look quite cheap.
It does.
The sort of the Egypt sets in this one, and the kind of, there's something about like the extras when there's the sort of the coup and all of the sort of bad guys come in and they kill the king and they prem the kind of head domo has to sort of grab the prince and disappear with some of the slaves into, the desert and all of this kind of thing. And it does go on. And even the bits with the extras, I was like, oh my God, they are really sort of stretching this. They
are. And it's one of those things. I'll get my obligatory Doctor Who reference in early. It does feel like sort of the cliche of Doctor Who. The sets that look like they're about to fall down and then they end up in a quarry. And it's like... Doctor Who wasn't like that, I have to say. If you've never watched it, don't let me put you off because I love it. But he wasn't really like that. It was a little bit, maybe. But this has that kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
It feels like the money's run out a little bit. And we're just going to sort of have a few cheap sets that look like they've been sort of redressed from somewhere else. And then we're just going to go to the nearest quarry and pretend that's the Egyptian desert. And it's like... don't do all that. You could have just had someone explain that to us in about 5 minutes of dialogue and it would have worked okay,
Although I must say it was more entertaining and interesting to watch than the bit in Curse from the Mummy's Tomb when they're just like panning slowly along the frieze of hieroglyphics and telling them, I was like, right, well, at least, there's real people and a bit of running around in, the desert or the quarry that's pretending to be the desert.
That's true. I will give you that. That's true. But I do find it's a real off-putter. So if you're watching this the other way round, I know some people do, you're listening to this before you watch the film, don't let that, or if you've tried to watch it, you thought, God, this is awful, I can't wait to hear them pan this, go back and watch it again and just sort of hold your nose during the prologue sequence. It does get a lot better, I promise you, it really does.
Yeah, it really does. And one of the main reasons it gets immediately better is we are immediately introduced to, get your bingo's card out, ding, 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 Michael Ripper, who is playing a really proper role in this film again.
It's another one of those where he gets a real chance to do something. It's not just just turning up as coachman or barman.
Barman, yeah.
The last time we saw him doing something really good was The Reptile, wasn't it? Was it Reptile? Or...
Yeah, it was.
Yes, it's The Reptile, isn't it? Yeah.
Where he's the landlord.
And that was directed by John Gilling, who is, of course, directing this film. So I wonder if Gilling just recognised just how good he was and said, no, come on, we need to give him a meatier part. But he's amazing in this.
He is.
I absolutely love him. And when he inevitably meets a sticky end, because it's a Hammer film, it's Michael Ripper, chances are, he's not going to make it to the end. But when he does, it is actually genuinely moving, I find.
Yeah, it is.
It's sobbing, knowing that, he's about to die. It's extraordinary.
He plays Mr. Longbarrow in this, who is kind of the press secretary to this guy who's come over to Egypt, Mr. Preston, looking for his son. And what's really nice about Michael Ripper when he does these more meaty roles is even then he's not just playing the same thing over and over again, because
oh no, not at all. I can't think of another part, particularly in Hammer films, that's like Longbarrow.
Exactly.
It's completely different to anything else he's done.
It's funny because this guy Preston, who is he's played by John Phillips, Stanley Preston. He's such a git. Like he's really awful. And Michael Ripper's character, Longbarrow, is his press secretary, as I say. And he's almost at the beginning this sort of very sort of, I don't know, bowing and scraping, sort of slightly sycophantic character.
Yeah, he's very servile, isn't he?
Very servile, that's the perfect word. Which, as it's nice to almost see him then sort of have a bit of an arc actually through the film, which is...
That's right, yeah. And boy, does he make the most of the opportunity, because it's such a terrific performance.
It is. To
be honest, if I'd not enjoyed this one more this time and not up to my letterbox rating, I still would have raved about Michael Ripper, because he was always the best thing about this film. I thought. Really, really something special.
So you mentioned John Gilling just now. So as you say, we know him from The Reptile, but also Shadow of the Cat and Plague of the Zombies, obviously. He's back in the director's chair. How do we find his direction of this film, Kev? I know that we've talked in terms of mummy films, especially Curse, about it, like the pacing being really off and stuff. But this one, apart from the slightly tacked on and ponderous flashback scene that you mentioned just now, it zips along this one a bit more, I thought.
Oh, he does. He's a much more dynamic director.
Yeah.
Than it was Michael Carreras, wasn't it?
That's right.
Curse from the Mummy's Tomb. Bless him, Michael Carreras, I said at the time, I'll keep on saying it, we're about to enter a phase where we owe him a great deal.
Right.
But he wasn't much of a director. Never was. John Gilling is an excellent director. Really good. And he's much more dynamic. We got much more of a sense of movement.
Definitely.
Both of the story itself and within scenes. Once we get past that horrible bloody prologue, I do wonder, was that shot by someone else? Maybe,
honestly,
maybe not.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, actually, if that was the case.
Could you feel to be sluggish compared to the rest of the film? But anyway, he brings that dynamism to it, which I think is a film like this desperately needs that, because these films can be terribly talky. The mummy doesn't move very quick. But he does. He manages to make the mummy quite scary in this by sort of shooting it from a low angle. Right.
There are some amazing camera angles in this film. And I think your word dynamic is absolutely right. It feels like Gilling is really kind of making conscious efforts to make it look interesting, to give us something, to... I don't know, capture the imagination a little bit. Like, it's not just plonk the camera there. And I'm not saying, you get that in a lot of Hammer films. A lot of them are shot really interestingly and really dynamically.
Sure,
but I noticed it quite specifically in this one. And I wonder if that is because it's the third Mummy film and you maybe haven't had that so much in the other Mummy films that we've watched. But like I say, I mean, it's just great to look at.
Oh, it is. And you get those wonderfully sinister shots of the mummy sort of standing up in its sarcophagus. And they're just filmed from below. And there's just something about the way he shoots it, the way he lights it. It makes it feel like it's about to step down at any second. You can feel this sort of life fizzing away in it, even when it's not moving.
Yeah.
And that's such a difficult trick to pull off. There's an energy running through this film, which I find is quite irresistible. In a way.
I agree with that, definitely.
If you remember, I'm going to open a can of worms again here, but if you remember, I said in The Witches, what might John Gilling have made of The Witches? This is what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Taking a sort of a potentially quite static story and breathing some life and energy into it.
Absolutely.
That was what I was sort of getting at, really. And I think we're seeing what could have been possibly here, perhaps, in a way, sort of.
Yeah, I definitely get your point with that. And it's not even just the mummy, the way this is shot. There are some of the kind of deaths. I know when poor Sir Basil has his head crushed by the mummy. And the murder sort of... it corresponds with like the theft of the shroud and all of that kind of stuff, and that is shot really amazingly.
It is, isn't it?
Sort of, it feels like you're there. Like, it was quite shocking.
It is. I think all of those scenes with what's her name? Kyra. It's not Kyra. It's Haiti. Isn't it?
That's right.
With Catherine Lacey as Haiti.
Yeah.
Not quite sure why an Egyptian character is named after a Caribbean island, but let's not worry about that too much. But all of the scenes with her, I think, are really atmospherically shot.
Yeah.
There's some really sort of creepy, haunted feeling to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Really, really nice. He does a superb job here. I think I think if, bless him, I don't want to badmouth Michael Carreras too much, because like I say, we're going to heap love on him in years to come. But if he'd have directed the Mummy Shroud, I don't know. I don't think we'd be sitting here talking about it the way we are now.
No, I think bringing John Gilling in after the amazing work that he did on films like The Reptile and Plague of the Zombies particularly, bringing him in to do the Mummy movie was 100% the right call, because he just breathes so much life into it. Yeah. And
ironically breathing life into the Mummy, but yeah.
Yes, exactly.
That's what you need with a film like this. This is what you need with zombie films. That, you get a director like George Romero in Night of the Living Dead, and I'm not a huge fan of Dawn of the Dead, but I understand its worth and its importance. But you look at Lucio Fulci with Zombie Flesh Eaters in particular. You look at Jorge Grau with Living Dead at the Manchester Morgue. Those are directors who can bring a real energy to these films and a sense of atmosphere.
Yeah.
And you look at the really rubbish ones, which we seem to see about 30 of every day on streaming platforms, and they haven't got that dynamism and that energy. If you've got a character who is essentially dead, stiff-legged, and walks around at a snail's pace, you need to be a good director to make that work.
Right.
And Gilling, thankfully, he was the right man for the job. Yeah, you're right there. Yeah.
And the other thing I quite like about the way it's directed, apart from just the way it looks, is the action to me felt a bit more contained.
Yes.
Almost like it's, you see sort of more modern horror movies set up now. It didn't feel that... What am I trying to say? There wasn't this kind of bagginess around it. It all felt like just the sort of narrative and everything was much more contained. You didn't have all of this sort of, I don't know, extraneous stuff. It was very lean.
Stripped to the bone, wasn't it? Stripped to the bone.
And I really appreciated that. And I think it really helped with, the pacing and that feeling of kind of excitement while I was watching it, which I haven't really had before with the Mummy films.
Well, on that note, I think it's probably sort of says a great deal. It's the only one of the Hammer Mummy films that's set entirely in Egypt.
Yeah.
We never wander off very far from the tomb and the town nearby. Mm-hmm. So it is very contained. It's very small, but that, I think by being small sometimes, that focuses the mind of the director.
Yeah.
A little bit. They haven't got to worry about, how have we got to get, so they're going to take the Mummy from here back to London. I'm going to have to slow the action down to show them on a boat and show them unloading it and all the rest of it. It's just like, no. It's all been told. It's all there. We can do this. We can get on with it and just tell the story we want to tell. And I think that helps no end. Yeah,
I completely agree. We're going to come on to talk about some sort of like thematic stuff and whether there's... I really want to ask you about some sort of clairvoyance and stuff, which is hinted at in the film, where the horror comes from and stuff. But I'm just going to... I thought we go through the kind of cast of characters first, because it's a good way to sort of place us. And we haven't really talked about kind of, why we're in Egypt and all of that kind of thing.
Sure.
So we've got this little boy prince, and he dies in the desert after there's been this big uprising in ancient Egypt. And then you jump to the present day. And as always, you've got all the archaeologists and stuff. And so Stanley Preston, played by John Phillips, who we mentioned earlier, who's the bit of a git. He has just arrived in Egypt because his son, Paul, and an expedition led by Sir Basil Walden, who is played by the brilliant Andre Morel. He is leading the expedition to find the tomb, right? So classic setup, but they've gone missing in the desert. So you've got Paul and Basil, and then you've got Claire, who is played by Maggie Kimberly, who is a kind of language expert. So she's along on the expedition because she's able to kind of read the ancient Egyptian script and hopefully, get them into this tomb. But they've gone missing. There's been a sort of big sandstorm and they're lost in the desert. Nobody knows where they are. And so Stanley Preston and his poor, long-suffering wife, Barbara, played by Elizabeth Sellers, have flown over, met up with Long Barrow, played by Michael Ripper, And this is kind of where we're dropped into the action. We've got the ones left lost in the desert, and the ones who have sort of come to figure out what's going on, with all of the sort of influence and funding of the British Empire behind them, it seems.
Indeed. Yes, that's right. Yes.
And so, yeah, we are kind of dropped into the action with a this very kind of classic British upper class guy. And he is telling everybody what to do, throwing his weight around. There's definitely still that hint of kind of empiricism, you know, at the heart of it. But do we learn anything new, or is there anything kind of... when I was talking earlier about the sort of central conceit of a mummy film, and then the sprinkling of different characters and kind of tropes and lore and things around it, what does the Mummy Shroud give to us that is maybe a bit different to what we've seen before?
Well, like you said, the basic plot is old hat.
Yeah.
But what it does, and it's something that Hammer do really, really well, I think, is they take old ideas and they add new stuff to it. They put layers on it. And, you know, this was co-written by Gilling and Anthony Hines, who, of course, you know, was writing most of their stuff at the time. And they used the idea of a mummy and this rescue mission into the desert as just kind of a skeleton on which to hang all sorts of other interesting things.
Yes. Like,
for example, an examination, as you were saying just now, really, about these characters and their sort of entitlement.
Yeah.
The sense of entitlement that they've got. Not so much Sir Basil. I think Sir Basil's pretty cool, but Stanley Preston is a revolting character.
Yeah. Who
is appalling to Longbarrow.
Yeah.
Who is this very much a sort of, you know, I'm always reminded of that classic comedy sketch, the I Know My Place. with the two Roddies and John Cleese. You know, I look up to him, he looks down on me.
Right.
And he's Longbarrow is very much the sort of the guy at the bottom. I know my place, you know. And he's like, and you kind of, all the while, you're willing him to fight back against this obnoxious guy. He's just awful. Preston is so horrible. He's just dismissive of everyone.
Everyone.
As befits a sort of not quite aristocrat, but certainly an upper middle class English gentleman.
That's it.
Who thinks that because he's an upper class English gentleman, upper middle class English gentleman, he is entitled to something.
Yeah.
Whether that be money or power or respect or whatever. He doesn't have to earn it. He just demands it and expects it. And
it seems to be all three of those that he wants.
Oh, he wants all
money, power, and respect.
And respect.
There's no either or situation with Stanley Preston.
And in the end, he earns none of it. I mean, he gets none of it, and he's certainly not earning it. He's so dismissive of everyone, especially his poor, long-suffering wife. I mean, it's like the bit when we first meet him and he's sort of like banging on to anybody who'll listen about what he's there for. And then he just turns around and goes, oh, this is my wife.
Yeah.
Almost like he just remembered that she was there.
Yeah.
You know, she was just like a bit of a hanger-on, bit of a nuisance. You know, just awful, man. So I think they're making this sort of statement a bit. We've seen this before about this sort of gulf between the upper middle class and the working class and the lower middle class even. And sort of like, how differently they all see the world.
Yeah, and I just think every time we see it from Hammer, they do it so well. They seem, you know, we have talked about this kind of sort of class discrepancy, the sort of politics of it all, the sort of the social politics of it all before. And what we've talked about before, and what I think is done really well again here, is that this isn't a film about that. This is a monster movie.
That's right, yeah.
But it's you can't ignore it, and it's just sort of laced through. So it gives the narrative, gives these characters something a bit more interesting, and it gives us something a bit more interesting to sort of, you know, hang our coat on. Yeah. But at the same time, it's not banging us over the head with it. It's just kind of showing you the differences between these characters who were sort of thrown into this bizarre situation. And it's a really lovely way, I think, to explore that stuff, as I say, without being the kind of central theme of the film.
It's just there for texture.
Yeah.
It's there. If you want to see it, it's there. If you don't want to see it, it doesn't matter. That's fine. That's great. Ignore it and just watch the horror film. And that's fine. That works both ways. And it's not like... I'm getting on my soapbox. Go make a cup of tea if you want to. But a lot of modern writers, they will sort of like, they'll get on their soapbox and they'll start to lecture us from the film. Hammer never did that. Hammer put it into the film, and if you spotted it, great. Yeah. If you didn't matter. There's still a good film to watch.
Exactly that. I really like Paul, played by David Buck. So he's the son. He's the one that's kind of lost with Sir Basil out in the desert. And what really struck me about Paul and his relationship to his father in this one is it felt like, even though this isn't a contemporarily set film, the way that he stands up to his father and reads him the riot act a bit and actually calls him out on the way that he is behaving, the way that he treats other people, etc., really felt a bit more like a late 60s kind of writing of these characters where young people were starting or were starting to settle into, I suppose, this more independent lifestyle that you had from your family and especially from your parents. You know, in the 50s, you didn't really have that. We've talked a lot about kind of teenagers and stuff. Yeah. And this feels really kind of like there's an established confidence in Paul. And there's this brutal moment where he is, as I say, reading his dad the riot act, and he says something like, Sir Basil is, twice the man you are.
Yeah.
And it's this thing of like not just this assumed respect for your parents and this inability to kind of stand up to them or call them out for their behavior. And I found that, like, again, a real breath of fresh air. And I was like, because you're right, you do want Longbarrow to stand up to him, but because it's his boss, that's a bit more difficult.
Sure.
Whereas I think with the father-son dynamic, Paul is able to do it, and it's so satisfying.
And I think it's really nicely written as well. The fact that we're introduced to Preston, he's a horrible. Immediately we know he's a wrong un. We know he's not to be trusted. But then we meet Sir Basil. And the first thing we see Sir Basil, and remember, Sir Basil is, he's upper class as well. He's not quite aristo, but he's from the higher echelons of society. He's the first thing we see him doing is apologising to his team for putting them through all this.
Yeah.
Preston doesn't give a shit.
And in fact, he asks, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's like a very democratic.
That's right. Yeah.
Because he says, we can wait.
Yep.
We're running out of water and we've probably got enough water to get us back to base.
Yep.
Or if we continue looking for the tomb, it's possible we are going to run out of water.
Yeah.
And he asks not only Paul, but he asks Claire as well. They're very much a team. And you're right, that's such a simple way of setting Sir Basil up as just a decent guy.
Yeah, I mean, unless a couple of writers might have had someone actually giving a long speech. Oh, that's Sir Basil. He's a lovely chap. He's very democratic in his beliefs. And blah, 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 blah. But they don't. They just show us what he's like.
Yeah.
And it's so well done. And, Andre Morel played it beautifully, of course, but the writing is fantastic in that moment, I think.
And as I mentioned, we've got Claire along as well.
Yeah.
Played by Maggie Kimberley. And, okay, so first thing I noticed about Claire, incredible eyebrows.
Yeah, yeah.
So pointy, Kev.
Oh, they're almost demonic, aren't they?
They're amazing.
Incredible.
And there is a little bit of eyebrow discontinuity, I would say, throughout the film, because you see her at first very pointy eyebrows, and then you see her a little bit later normal eyebrows, and then you see her later again pointy eyebrows again. I was like, I don't know who's on eyebrow continuity duty, but the pointiness is not sticking around.
No, it comes and goes like the mummy itself, doesn't it? Yeah.
But they are fabulous. She's incredibly styled. And yeah, as I say, she is this kind of linguist.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask you whether you think that, as well as the usual kind of curse of the mummy, supernatural stuff going on in this film, is there something kind of more humanly supernatural as well going on? Because it is hinted that Claire has some kind of like precognition.
Yeah. It's certainly hinted at. And of course, we've got Haiti as well, who seems to be able to see the future quite accurately. So, yeah, so there's these sort of supernatural strands going on in it. But again, it's not oversold.
No.
It's there, and you either care about it or you don't. And, you know, I think the film would have worked probably just as well without it, but I appreciate it being there.
Yeah, it's like you say, it's just another layer of texture, right?
It's just texture.
Yeah,
exactly. And so for a film which is basically about a dead body wandering around a quarry somewhere in Hertfordshire or wherever, it's actually quite a nuanced film. There's a lot of little extras going on in it. It's which is sort of Hammer at their very best, I think. I think that's what Hammer did so well, is they took these stories which have been done so many times before, not just by them, but by others, and just added those little layers, one at a time.
Yeah.
You know, like a little layer of paint here and then another little layer of paint over the top of that, just to bring out the colour a bit more.
Exactly.
And I think they do it so well here. It's surprising, really. Like you said, it's a surprisingly good film.
Yes.
You don't expect it to have this kind of detail going on in it. But yeah, I should point out actually that the Maggie Kimberly, what you were saying earlier about, you know, none of the characters in it are aristocracy. She kind of was. She just very recently, just before making this film, she got divorced from John Woodhouse, the 4th Earl of Kimberley.
Oh!
So she was, at one point, aristocracy of sorts. I mean, very lower echelon aristocracy. You know,
yeah.
we're not talking the movers and shakers here, but she was, by marriage, she was aristocracy. I do kind of wonder what Mr. Woodhouse must have thought, sort of, you know, getting divorced from his wife, and oh my God, she's in a bloody Hammer film about mummies. What's going on? You know, is this is this revenge of some sort? You know, I don't know. But yeah, but it's sort of interesting that, you know, she actually has claim to a sort of aristocracy.
That is interesting. Yeah. Was she an actress?
No.
Already?
No. And in fairness, well, I think, you know, she'd done a bit. But I think in fairness, you can kind of tell she wasn't really cut out to be an actress.
Yeah.
It's not the best performance we've seen from a female lead in a Hammer film, and she's massively outclassed by Elizabeth Sellers. But then, to be fair, most women were at the time, because Elizabeth Sellers was amazing, really good actress. But I think, you know, she kind of does what she can with the part that I think would have been better played by someone else. Mm-hmm. I don't want to sound too cruel about it, because, you know, she does what she can. It's not an awful performance. It's not a sort of film-ruining performance.
No, not at all.
It's just it feels a little bit more forced.
I think you can maybe see her acting.
Yes.
I think that's maybe.
And when you've got, you know, sort of people of the calibre of John Phillips and especially Andre Morel, who make acting invisible. Mm-hmm. You know, you think, oh, look, it's Andre Morel. And then 30 seconds later, you're thinking, that Basil's a nice guy, isn't he? You know, you've forgotten it's Andre Morel.
That is so well put. Yeah,
because
exactly.
He's so good. He becomes Basil. I think poor old Maggie, she doesn't really stop being Maggie pretending to be Claire.
No, exactly. There's also a possibility that I wouldn't have been so distracted by her eyebrows if I was more, you know, invested in the performance. Maybe so. May I just say at this point as well, we mentioned Andre Morel there. Mm-hmm. He's another one we're saying goodbye to. Is this his last one?
This is his last one.
Oh.
He was going to be back, or they wanted him back for next week's film, Quatermass and the Pit, about which I'm going to bite my tongue because I will talk about that till the cows come home, because he played Quatermass in the TV version. Hammer wanted him back, and he said, no, I don't fancy playing the same part twice. And so, yeah, this was his last Hammer film.
I'm sad to say goodbye.
It's going to get like this from now on. We're going to say goodbye to people that we've been travelling with now for months.
Yeah.
On this podcast, and it's going to be.
Yeah.
We're going to say hello to a whole new bunch of talents. We're going to say hello to some amazing people, including. Here's another little bit of trivia for you. David Buck as Paul Preston.
Yeah.
He was married to a young actress by the name of Madeline Smith.
No way.
Gorgeous and wonderful Madeline Smith, one of the nicest people I've ever met. She's wonderful.
That's
She's
right.
lovely. And I'm going to rave about her at great length in coming weeks, because we're going to see her in Taste of Blood, of Dracula, The Vampire Lovers, Frankenstein, The Monster from Hell. And, so we're going to see this new generation of talent come through. But we are at a point now where we are saying goodbye to some of our old favourites. And Andre Morel, thank you for your service, Andre. You were magnificent.
Absolutely magnificent.
In everything you did.
Yeah, there was, even just coming into this film, and I know I said earlier I was slightly dreading it, but I did have, you've said a couple of times about certain actors that turn up, more than once, that when you see their name in the credits, you think, everything's going to be okay, right?
All is well with the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Andre Morel has absolutely turned into one of those for me. So even though I was a little bit hesitant about watching this film, at least I knew that he was in it. So I was like, well, at least there's going to be one brilliant thing.
Exactly. And as it turns out, there's quite a few really good performances in this film.
There are.
But it's just, when you're up against Andre Morel, I think, like we were saying about Maggie Kimberly, she was doing her best, but she wasn't really that great an actress.
No.
And I think had she been surrounded by a lot of other younger people of her sort of same quality, as it were, she'd have been fine. But I just think when you're up against Andre Morel, she shares a lot of scenes with Andre Morel.
Yeah.
I think, even the best actresses of the day would struggle a little bit against an acting titan like that. So. But
it was, another thing that I think I've complimented Hammer on a few times, right from, back... talking about the Abominable Snowman and stuff, is I love that there are always women on these expeditions, there's always a real kind of, I don't know, respect for women's intelligence and contributions to these sorts of expeditions and stuff that, they turn up time and time again, whether they are just sort of colleagues and contemporaries, or even, assistants, whether that's in a hospital or up a mountain or, whatever it is. And this is just another example of that. So even though she's maybe not, the best performed character that we've seen,
sure,
it was still really nice to have her along for the ride. And I really like that they did have this hint at her potential sort of clairvoyance or precognition.
Yes, definitely.
Just to sort of, just richen it up a bit, really.
Just that little extra layer of something.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah, I think perhaps they realised, sort of Anthony Hines and John Gilling themselves both knew what I said earlier. This is a bit limiting with the Mummy. What are we going to do? We're going to have him wondering about murdering people. Okay, so we'll invent slasher film then, and we'll just have, this mummy as Michael Myers murdering people one after the other, which is kind of what he becomes eventually. But I think they kind of realised early on, we need something extra.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of zhuzhing up of the script. And they put these little textures in. I very much appreciate it.
So you mentioned there, Kev, Elizabeth Sellers, obviously, as Barbara Preston, and how she's such a talent. So what do we know? What else should I know Elizabeth Sellers from? Was she a big get? Oh,
yeah. In fact, for Hammer, she was a particularly sort of notable get, as it were, because she holds the unique distinction, of appearing in the first film shot by Hammer at Bray, Cloudburst, in 1951, and the last, this one.
That is very cool. What a claim.
Isn't that good? So she was there from, spanning the entire run of their time at good old Bray. And she's going on to be absolutely terrific in a Nigel Neal television episode. The absolutely terrifying During Barty's Party from Beasts.
Oh, this Beasts again.
Oh, honest to God, I remember seeing During Barty's Party when it was first on. And I would have been about 14, I think.
Yeah.
And Jesus Christ, it terrified me.
Really?
It's about a couple, she's one of them obviously, alone in a country house with what appears to be rats under the floorboards. Now, I've spoken before about my phobia of mice and rats, so obviously that was playing into that. But it becomes very clear that these are no ordinary rats. They're super intelligent rats.
Oh my God.
And they're plotting against these two humans and further afield against the entire human. I tell you what, Mike, if you're listening, we are going to do a special 6-part mini-series on beasts, and Becky's going to watch them all, and we're going to talk about it, and it's going to be bloody marvellous because it's
oh my God.
a great show.
Can we actually do that, please?
Can we do that?
I really, really love that.
We would do. We'll browbeat Mike. We'll abduct him and tie him to a chair until he gives in. You know. So basically, what we'll do, we'll tie him up, and I will talk about Doctor Who to him while he's tied to a chair until he eventually relents. And for God's sake, just shut him up. We'll talk about But yeah, so she's going to be magnificent in that. She's so good in that. And that was when I first saw her, and she stuck in my mind from seeing that episode, which traumatised me as a young teenager. And so, of course, years later, I see her in The Mummy's Shroud, and I'm already predisposed to think the worst of what's going to happen. You know, oh my God, it's Elizabeth Sallow. There's going to be a giant rat in here somewhere. But I love the way she plays Barbara in this. I love the worm that turns elements about Barbara. You've got this 26 years of simmering resentment about this man. You know, you kind of get the impression that maybe it was one of those sort of weird, not quite arranged marriages, but those sort of setups that you get with the posher people that sort of, you know, oh yes, marry him because, you know, he's in the city, he's an archaeologist, he's whatever, you know, and he'll be good for you. He'll be good for you. And she's hated every second of it. And she gets a wonderful line, doesn't she, where they're saying about, you know, got to flee the country because I was in the tomb. And she said, I don't. I never went into the tomb. And he's like, there's a little smile on her face when she's saying it. He's like, yeah, now get out of this one, you bastard. This is payback for the way you've treated me and our son over all these years.
That's right.
I love it. I'm here for that. I love it.
There is I think in the same scene, there is a glorious line that she says as well. And they are trying to leave and the inspector intercepts them. And she says to her awful husband something like, I'm sorry you didn't get your own way. I know how you suffer when this happens to you. Oh,
she's so bitchy, but entirely justifiably.
Exactly.
Entirely justifiably. She's finally standing up to this horrible man. They've been together 26 years. She's had 26 years of this creep.
God.
Can you imagine that? I mean, you know, so an hour and a half is enough for me.
Yes.
26 years, and it's just this glorious worm turning moment, you know, where she's finally she's getting what she deserves, I think. You know, she's a saint for putting up with this arsehole for so long.
Yeah, absolutely right. And then he sends Longbottom off to get him a single ticket.
Yeah.
And because they're all freaking out, everybody's dropping dead around them. Poor Harry, who is also on the expedition with Sir Basil and Paul and Claire. So Tim Barrett plays Harry, and he has a horrible end because he's attacked by the mummy and has his like photographic chemicals kind of poured all over him and set on fire. I mean, it is horrific.
It's it's one of Hammer's nastiest moments so far, I think. It's really quite grim, isn't it?
Really grim, really nasty. And everybody obviously is freaking out, desperate to get out of the country. And Barbara says, you know, well, I'm not going basically until Paul and Claire can come too.
Yeah.
And Preston sort of says, well, you know, you can please yourselves. He has said previously that he's going to take Longbottom with all of them, and then sends Longbottom off to get a single ticket and basically like rescinds this offer.
And the look on Michael Ripper's face.
Don't.
Honest to God, you're going to be a much stronger man than I am not to be a little bit moist around the eyes during that. He's so hurt.
He's hurt, absolutely crestfallen, afraid, Ripper really does kind of communicate all of that in one just sort of very slightly downcast look. And oh my goodness, it's heartbreaking because he thinks he's out, right? He
does, yeah. He thinks he's safe. And
then he gets it snatched away from him by this bastard.
And Preston never intended to take him. Never intended to take him. That's the kind of man he was. He Longbarrow served his purpose, and that was that. Don't need him anymore. He's that kind of man that will just, if you're no use to me, I don't want you around anymore.
Yeah.
And he's awful. And I have to say, if there's one thing that I really hope has come out of this podcast, it's that we've introduced people to Michael Ripper.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's introduced me to Michael Ripper, and I honestly, Kev, this is so funny, right? On Letterboxd, if you go to your stats.
Oh yeah, I know what you're going to say because I looked at mine the other day. I thought, oh yeah,
yeah, and it shows you like your most watched. actors. Michael Ripper is currently my most watched actor of 2026.
Yeah.
6 films. We have watched him in The Curse of the Werewolf, Captain Clegg, Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, Plague of the Zombies, The Reptile, and The Mummy's Shroud. And you're right. If anything has come out of this podcast, apart from just my love of, Hammer horror films on the whole, it's that I now know who Michael Ripper is and have a huge appreciation for him. I mean, he's in more even. So the next 2 are Barbara Shelley and Peter Cushing, who I've seen in 5 films each. And Michael Ripper's in even more than Peter Cushing and Barbara Shelley. Like, he's the heart and soul of these films.
I think it was Christopher Lee that said he was the heart of Hammer.
Oh, yeah.
Or something like that, and it is absolutely true. Hammer did some great films without him, but when he does turn up, again, like we said earlier, it's just a little bit more special when you see Michael Ripper turn up. And now, of course, you're going to see him everywhere. Yeah. You're going to see him in all his other films. And he's just wonderful. And here, he's just so good in this film. People
are going to think I'm mad. We'll be watching some other film. Michael Ripper will pop up. I'll shout bingo. People will think, what's going on?
And you can just give them your best disdaining look and say, you don't know Michael Ripper? Really? Where have you been? You call yourself a film expert and you don't know Michael Ripper? He should be at the top of every one of our listeners' lists of people to go and hunt down in future.
For sure.
Because I just think he's just so terrific in everything, but particularly in films like this where he's given a really good part.
Yeah, really good.
And his death scene is harrowing. It really is. It's heartbreaking.
Absolutely brutal because he's really upset and scared anyway. And the mummy comes for him and it's kind of at his door as he's trying to leave. Yeah. And he screams like, help me, somebody, help me. And then gets defenestrated. Yep. Thrown out the window, sort of wrapped in a sheet and just sort of splats on the pavement below. I mean, horrible. It is really, really rough.
When Preston meets his end, I'm cheering. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Excellent. When Longbarrow goes out the window, I'm sort of holding back the tears. I really am. Bloody stupid, cheap mummy film is making me nearly cry. How dare it? But honestly, I'm so invested in that character because of that performance.
Exactly.
That, I do feel like, oh God, don't kill him. Let him.
And I think you're right. I think it's the performance, and I do think that it's the writing because it's. Again, it could have been a much more simple, straightforward. Yep. He's one of the Brits over there. He's going to meet his end eventually. You didn't have to have this bit where Sir Basil dangles this kind of escape in front of him and then snatches it away at the last minute.
Oh, no, it's Stanley, isn't it? Stanley Preston who did that.
Yeah, sorry, what did I say?
Not Sir Basil. Yeah.
Sir Basil, sorry, yes. Stanley Preston dangles it in front of him, snatches it away at the last minute. Yeah. And it's the performance of how broken he is kind of by that disappointment. But again, like there's just something better about the writing in this film. You didn't have to do that. You know, you didn't have to kind of make that so emotional just before he dies, which then adds so much weight, so much more weight to his death, if that makes sense. It's
a classic combination of it, isn't it? It's there on the page, but then you get someone like Michael Ripper bringing it to life.
Definitely.
So he brings what's on the page, which is already very good. He brings something extra, because that's the kind of actor that he was. You can see why Hammer loved him.
And I can see why when, we recorded probably our first introduction episode all the way back, that you were already talking about Michael Ripper then. And I was like, who? And then, and now I see why. I get it. I get it now.
If people come to this podcast because they think Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, great, excellent.
Exactly.
If they then leave thinking Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, Andre Morel and Michael Ripper, my work here is done. It really is.
And Barbara Shelley.
And Barbara Shelley. We're going to talk more about Barbara Shelley next week, but we're going to say goodbye to her next week as well. Sadly.
Don't tell me that.
Oh, no,
she's
so
my
sad.
absolute number one fave. I love her so much. And she's, again, not to get ahead of ourselves, but she's another one of these women who is very much at the centre of the action. And, and
let's not forget, of course, that Barbara has come along on the expedition to find her son.
Yes.
She didn't have to. She'd have been quite happy, I'm sure, staying at home away from her idiot husband.
Yeah, my God, could you imagine the fun she'd have had in their house with him away?
Oh, good God, put an entire couple of continents between us. That would be fantastic. That'd be great. But she comes anyway because she wants to check up on her son, make sure he's okay. And I just think Barbara is a tremendous character in this.
So
I really
good.
like her.
She really
And Elizabeth
is.
Sellers, another one. Go and watch Beasts. Go and watch During Barty's Party.
Yeah.
If nothing else, just go and watch that one. You should be able to find it by fair means or foul, and just watch it.
There must be a box set,
There
right?
was a DVD release. It came out on Network. Network have gone bust. I don't know if anybody else picked the rights up to it.
Ooh.
So it might be out there second hand, but it could be quite pricey.
Okay, all right. I'll do some eBay scouting.
Do some research.
Maybe.
Do some research.
Well, I'm going to have to if we're going to do this new podcast.
Damn right we are. We'll deal with that Muncer. We don't need him. We'll just do it anyway. So,
We'll just talk about it down the pub. It'll be fine.
I shouldn't say things like that. He edits these things, doesn't he? He's going to get his revenge on me one day. He really
He'll
is.
turn your mic off.
Yeah. To which the entire nation goes, hooray! There was much rejoicing among the populace, yes.
So you've mentioned
Haiti.
Haiti a couple of times. The brilliant Catherine Lacey. She is this sort of very stereotypical, trope-laden, old clairvoyant who looks into a crystal ball and all of this kind of stuff, while wrapped in sort of beautiful shawls and things, as they always are. But she is the mother of Hashmid, played by Roger Delgado, and he is the kind of I guess the guardian of the mummy, right? So he is kind of the character who is sort of in charge of the mummy now.
That's right. Yeah.
And again, we've got a couple of performers here who were just doing, I thought, just kind of exactly what they needed to be doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing showy about what they're doing.
No.
They're just taking it from the page and bringing it to life, vividly bringing it to life, Lacey is fantastic. I think she's really good. She's got one of those really sort of lived-in faces.
Yes.
Really good. And Roger Delgado, oh my God, I'm off again. He's going to be the master in a few years' time in Doctor Who. He was the first master in Doctor Who. Good God, woman. I've let you down with this educating bit, haven't I? Really have. This is awful. I need to try harder. But yes, he was the original master in Doctor Who. And my God, he was magnificent. He was magnificent. And so magnificent that he was born with a magnificent name. We know him as Roger Delgado. His full name, go and put that kettle on. This could take a while. Roger Caesar Marius Bernard de Delgado Torres Castillo Roberto.
Oh my word.
Magnificent.
What a handle.
It'll come of no surprise. He's of Spanish descent. But you never would have seen that coming, would you? But what a magnificent name. What a magnificent performer. And he's great in this because he's kind of playing a stereotypical part.
Yeah.
But he's playing it with a bit of a twinkle in his eye.
I agree with that. Yeah, he's really fun.
He knows that he's playing a stereotype and he's just having fun with the part.
Yeah.
And he's so good. He's so good. I wish Hammer had used him more often. They used him in Stranglers of Bombay and Terror of the Tongs back in the early 60s. But they didn't really use him as much as I would have liked. I think he did that, as we saw with the Master. He did evil really, really well.
Yeah,
and
he should have been a proper baddie, like a big bad, you know.
He should have been a vampire. He should have been a sort of a sub-Dracula vampire lord or something. He would have been so good. But, we get him here and he's brilliant. He's fantastic.
He is brilliant, yeah. I mean, you do bring up something there and we talk about it every time when we talk about mummy films. This slightly problematic / sketchy casting from time to time. I thought that this was better. I think that Hammer are getting better at it by 1967. When we talked about the Mummy's Curse from the Mummy's Tomb in, I think, 1964. Now, if you want to talk about Michael Ripper, we talked at the time about how his part in that was very offensive, actually.
It was, yeah. It was.
And we said then, by 1964, we would have hoped that, they were doing things a little bit better. I would say that by 1967, they are doing things a little bit better. It does seem to be moving in the right direction. The one that really, really stuck out for me, though, is Dickie Owen as Prem.
Oh, dear, yes.
And the reason it sticks out so badly is actually because they are getting better. Because in that sort of prologue, the flashback that we get, the little prince is definitely played by a person of colour. All of the kind of slaves that they go out into the desert with definitely are. And so you've got this real kind of authenticity starting to come through, and giving parts to people who may who at least sort of look the part, and
That's right.
giving opportunities to people of colour in these roles. And then you get Prem played by Dickie Owen, who they have 100% browned up, and therefore sticks out like a sore thumb. And I was like, no, guys, you were doing so well.
I think what's changed, is television has come along. There were more parts for black and Asian actors. Being written. And we mentioned, didn't we, in The Witches, that we saw Rudolph Walker at the beginning.
Yes.
Who's going to become a massive name and face on British television. He's going to be huge. He's going to be, we're beginning to see these black actors coming through. And so I think, they are relegated here to a possibly quite offensive status as slaves.
Yes.
In this, but we are actually beginning to see a bigger pool of black actors available to Hammer. When we were talking about them doing The Abominable Snowman, and they said for the extras in the Himalaya scenes, they had to round up waiters from Chinese restaurants.
That's
because
right.
there weren't any Asian actors available at that point. By now, only a handful of years later, we're beginning to see a step in the right direction. Hammer were not quite brave enough to cast a genuinely Middle Eastern person as Prem. I don't know who they would have chosen, but I'm sure there must have been someone.
It's not even as if there's any sort of lines in that part, because as I said earlier, it's kind of narrated, right? It's got this sort of voiceover over the top.
That's right.
So it's not like, we couldn't find any actors who were of high enough sort of talent to deliver these lines, blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, he's pretty much mute anyway. So why couldn't you have one of the actors, for example, who's playing one of the slaves to play this sort of courtier, So anyway, I just thought I don't want to get to the point where we've seen it so often that we're not mentioning it, because I do still think it's worth mentioning.
Absolutely.
And as I say, it just stuck out to me particularly in this one, because actually there is a step in the right direction, but yet they have, as you say, stopped short, not been quite brave enough to cast a person of colour in a named role. And therefore you get Dickie Owen browned up, sticking out like a sore thumb against all of these people of colour.
And yet the interesting thing is they do pretty much the same thing with Richard Warner as Inspector Barani.
That's true. That's true.
He's browned up. But the difference is, I think, that his character is quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That he is the one who is level-headed, on the case, issuing warnings not to be stupid, and all of the white idiots that have turned up completely ignore everything he says.
Yes.
And I think that's quite an interesting thing in okay, it would have been so much better. Maybe Roger Delgado even, okay, he's got Spanish descent, but he would have looked a bit more like, the pass. But I think they actually did quite an interesting thing there, that they actually made the Egyptian guy the only sensible one in the room.
Yeah.
Even more so than Sir Basil. Sir Basil's a lovely guy, but he makes mistakes.
Yeah.
He does put people at risk. I think Inspector Barani is the cool thinker, the level-headed one.
He's a very cool character, actually.
Yeah.
I really like it when there's that kind of change in his approach towards the end of the film, where he does believe that they're in danger, whether he believes that is from a supernatural curse, or whether it's just because he has noticed quite rightly that they are all under some sort of attack and they're all dropping dead left, right, and centre. He actually says to them, like, he makes it free for Paul and Claire to leave if they want to. And it's then Paul, it's not even so much at that point that he doesn't listen. He sort of says running away isn't the answer, right? And so you actually get this quite sort of solid partnership then between the inspector and Paul, and then at the end it's both of them who kind of come to the rescue, which is I agree. I really liked him as that kind of level-headed voice of reason, air of authority, but as you say, not Sir Basil air of authority, white man from Britain. He's like, no, this is like, even if Richard Warner isn't an Egyptian actor, the character is Egyptian, and he's very positive. He's
very much the air of authority of, I have lived in this country and this culture all my life. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You idiots have just rocked up from Blighty thinking that you're owed something.
As you always do.
You come here with your arrogance and your stupidity, and you're not listening to me, and okay, you're all going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can almost, between the lines, as he's speaking, you can almost hear him sigh and think, well, if they're going to be this stupid, they deserve to die. Yes. I've tried my best with these bloody idiots. And these are supposed to be our betters. They come over here like, oh, yes, we're going to take all this back to the British Museum because you savages can't be trusted with all of this. We've got to take it back to civilization. You don't listen to a bloody word, I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of feel there's an air of frustration about the inspector, which I kind of like. I think he's a really interesting character.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Let's talk about The Mummy.
Yeah.
It's a mummy film after all. Let's talk about The Mummy.
Yeah.
I've just been looking down my cast of characters, and I haven't made a note, Kev, of who plays the mummy.
Ah, well, it's Eddie Powell.
Is it?
It's good old Eddie Powell. Yes.
Great.
We've talked about Eddie before. He's Hammer's long-standing stuntman. In fact, the British film industry's long-standing stuntman. I mean, this guy doubles for almost everybody, but particularly for Christopher Lee. I think we talked a long while ago about how he looks a bit like Christopher Lee. You went away and found a photograph and came back and said, oh, bloody hell, Kevin. Yeah. He does, doesn't he? He's amazing. So this is an amazing guy. He was married to Rosemary Burrows, who was the wardrobe mistress at Hammer.
Yeah.
He'd done it all. He'd been, he'd been in She. He was one of the Arabs in The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. Go right back to The Guns of Navarone. He's in that. We're going to see him again next week in Quatermass and the Piss as a journalist. We're going to see him again in The Devil Rides Out as the Goat of Mendes. If you haven't seen it yet,
I haven't.
You'll know. Oh, wait till you see the Goat of Mendes. Oh, my good God. Amazing. And, he's one of the aliens in Alien.
Is he? No.
Yeah, when he's not, what's his name, Vallejo, what's his name? The tall guy that they found. When it's the stunt sequences, it's Eddie Powell.
Oh, that's cool.
Again, in Aliens, he's a mummified guard, strangely enough, in Legend. You know, the Ridley Scott film with Tom Cruise, when Tom Cruise was about 5 years old.
Yeah.
But, So he had a hell of a career, and here he is playing the mummy, and understandably so. This was a big guy, a big physical guy, and when you've got a monster like the mummy, you need a big physical guy under those bandages.
Of course.
You know? Because you've got no facial expressions, you've just got body language.
Yeah.
And stuntmen are trained to do a lot of things in the name of entertaining us, mostly sort of risking their lives every 30 seconds of their working days. Bless them. I love stuntmen. They're incredible. They're insane. Every last one of them are completely barking. I've met a few and they are all barking mad, but they're wonderful people. Absolutely brilliant. But you know, their mission in life is to hurt themselves for our entertainment.
I know. But, Nutters. But one of the things I think they get trained in is the use of body language to express things. Yeah.
Because they don't get lines, they don't get facial close-ups. They need to express through body movements and so on. And I think he brings a real menace to the mummy in this one. This is actually quite a scary mummy. The makeup, maybe not quite so much. But when it's lit properly and we're seeing him, you know, in shadows and all the rest.
And as you said, with those very menacing camera angles.
That's right. Yeah. He does look the part. Yeah,
he does. And he's, like you say, you know, he's this big guy. So that kind of the physical threat is absolutely there.
Oh, yeah.
The thing that I did find a little unscary is the makeup, because he's this great big hulking guy. He's wrapped in bandages, as you say, you know, mummy's scary, right?
Yeah.
But he's got this like sad little mouth.
Yes.
And these very sort of almost like whimsical eyebrows.
Yeah. He's an odd-looking mummy when we see him too close up. This was the work of a new-to-us makeup guy called George Partleton. And I think he probably didn't have a lot of money. But I'm not quite so sure why he looks so sad.
I know, he looks really sad.
He does. You know, he's like, well, okay, some horrible things happened to him 1,000 years ago or something, but he's under wraps, you know, sort of make him cheer up, for God's sake.
Which of the Egyptian people sort of put a little sad mouth on him, you know, back in the day when they were preparing him?
Oh, you can imagine someone like Kato Bey, you know, the kid.
Yeah.
You can't even imagine him, can't you? Is that Kato Bey was the little boy?
That's right.
I think it is, isn't it? Yeah. You can imagine someone like him, some cheeky little kid, sort of breaking into the tomb before they put the lid down. Yeah, let's quickly do some graffiti on
with his Crayolas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but yeah, it's a strange looking mummy. But I think, you know, Gilling's direction and the lighting, I think, is magnificent.
Yeah.
This is Arthur Grant again. You know, the cinematographer.
Yeah.
We've seen he's worked so many times. When they're working together, and it sort of disguises some of that, I think he's actually a very effective mummy. They just do make the mistake occasionally of letting him wander out into the light.
Yeah, exactly. Or a bit of a tight close-up, and I'm sort of looking at him thinking, why is he so sad and quizzical, this mummy, rather than scary? But, you know.
Exactly. But when you see him sort of hulking about, you don't see the face, you just see like the arms reaching out for people or the body lurking in the background.
Yeah.
It's actually quite sinister.
Yeah.
It's actually quite a creepy character. Yeah.
Also, before we move on from talking about the mummy, I would like to draw some attention to the tagline for this film.
Ah, yes.
Which is one of my favourites of all time. Beware the beat of the cloth-wrapped feet.
One of us was going to have to mention this, and I'm glad it was you that did it. Brilliant. Hammer were going to go through a little phase of or their publicists, at least in America, certainly, we're going to go through a little phase of wonderful little taglines. You know, when we get to Dracula has risen from the grave, there's this American poster of a close-up of a woman's neck with a Band-Aid on it.
That's right.
And he just says, obviously. You know, Dracula has risen from the grave. Obviously.
Obviously.
You know, and I just think, I know a lot of fans don't like that, but I think it's actually quite good fun. I do like this, the beware the beat of the cloth-wrapped feet. I love it.
I think it's fantastic.
Brilliant. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I really like it.
I wrote a piece for a release, I think, of Frankenstein. Blood from the Mummy's Tomb. I think you may have worked on that as well, but I wrote something for the booklet.
I was going to, and then I couldn't, which I was really sad about. I had to pull out at the last minute because I had a family emergency.
Well, I stole your gig.
Did you?
And
you're welcome.
Did. And it was like, an overview of their mummy films from Hammer. And as I introduced each one, I introduced it with the tagline from the film. And I actually got a message back saying they didn't really use that, did they? Yeah, they did. It's brilliant. I love it.
I would like, if anybody out there has got a big, beautiful copy of the Dracula has risen from the grave poster,
yeah.
I want it on my wall.
Yeah.
Get it over here, please. Maybe I'll look for that on eBay when I'm looking up the box set of Beasts.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yes, there you go. That's your money gone this month, right?
I know, God.
Who'd have thought this podcast would have cost you a bloody fortune? Huh?
Well, me and all our listeners, by all accounts.
Oh, yeah, honestly, the amount of people that contacted me and said, my bank manager's going mad, the amount of money I'm spending because I'm listening to this bloody podcast. I feel no shame. Look, my money comes in, I just spend it before it's even touched the bloody sides, So if I'm going to suffer, you're going to suffer.
Exactly.
Taking you all with me. Yeah. See you all in the poorhouse.
Yeah, bury me with my DVD collection, please.
Oh, quite right. Yeah, bury me with everything. I'm taking the whole lot. The guitars, the books, the CDs, the records, you name it. It's all coming with me. No bastards getting their hands on that. They're mine.
Like a mummy, literally being buried.
Yes,
with
buried
all of your
with all
riches.
my worldly goods.
Yeah,
because I want to go into the afterlife playing my Jimi Hendrix things on the guitar.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not quite right. That'll bloody teach them in the afterlife. Wake them up, wouldn't it? Bloody hell. Anyway. So.
Now, I was saying earlier, it's nice to have Claire along for the ride as, the linguist. But, as often is the case, she does get herself into some trouble and needs to be saved by the blokes. So let's talk about the ending of the film and start to wrap things up a little bit.
Yeah.
So Preston gets his comeuppance. Yeah. Gets got by the mummy, basically.
Gets his head bashed against a wall, leaving a little, rather large smear of blood behind. It's fantastic. Quite
Delightful.
well deserved.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't happen to a nicer bloke. Because actually, I did want to draw attention to one bit about Preston. We keep talking about how horrible he is, but there's this bit earlier on when he is dictating a letter for Longbarrow, is it a letter or a it's his journal, isn't it?
It's his journal. Yeah.
So not only does he not write his own journal.
Yeah, I know, he's such a lazy bastard. He doesn't even write his own journal. He gets poor Longbarrow to do it for him. What a horrible man.
So he basically lies in his own journal. Mm-hmm. Which is the most baffling behaviour anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Because who's he lying to? But also, he doesn't even write his own journal. He's getting Longbarrow to write it. And he says things like, I started excavating. So basically kind of claiming credit for the excavation of the mummy's tomb, and then starts lying about or sort of exaggerating this worker mutiny and how he'd had to hold them at gunpoint at one point. Yeah. And again, going back to Michael Ripper's performance, like the look on his face as he is writing this stuff down in his journal or his memoir or whatever it is. I mean, I can only assume that he thinks he's going to get a publishing deal for this, incredible work of fiction that he's putting together.
He doesn't think he's going to get a publishing deal. He knows he's going to get one because he demands it, because he's Stanley Preston. Of course he will get one. Of course he will. No question about that whatsoever. The only thing that could stop him getting a publishing deal is a mummy smashing his head. Oh, hang on a minute.
Oh dear. Oh no, how unfortunate.
Oh dear, what a shame. Never mind.
But anyway, I wanted to bring that up just because, we're talking about how delighted we are when he gets his head smashed against a wall. And it's examples like that are the reason for our glee.
Oh, I think once upon a time I might have thought, yeah, that's overdoing it a bit because nobody's quite like that. But then you look around the world, don't you, at the moment, you see people in power. I'm mentioning no names. You can work it out yourself. So you think, actually, this isn't that far from the bloody truth, is it? This is kind of prophecy in a strange sort of way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So Claire, she gets herself into a spot of bother. She goes to see the clairvoyant, who says that she may be able to save Claire and the others. This is Haiti. And again, actually, I've made a note here, more cool camera angles. Again, it's sort of down on the floor and sort of a bit of a Dutch angle here and there. Like, looks really, really cool. And again, it's just a couple of old psychics sort of having a chat in a parlour.
That's right, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it looks really good.
That one scene has got more energy than the whole of Curse of the Mummies 2.
100%, it definitely does.
Good old John Gilling.
Yeah,
John Gilling.
Exactly. So the way to kind of fix things is Claire needs to basically ask forgiveness in the language of the pharaoh. So ask forgiveness from the mummy. Luckily, she's a linguist. We get Claire sort of, speaking this ancient language, asking for forgiveness from Prem, the mummy. But Hashmi's having none of it. He's like, what are you doing? Kind of, trying to let them off the hook. And so he says the words to, bring the mummy to life and sort of set him on the attack and sort of sets him on Claire. But luckily, as I said earlier, this is when Paul and the inspector sort of come to the rescue.
Yeah.
And then there's sort of shots fired, loads of action, and Paul shouts, "Claire, the words of death, say them." And one of my favourite moments from Claire earlier, which I thought was a line actually really beautifully delivered, was they find these words of death sort of on an ancient scroll, or I think they're on the titular mummy's shroud, and she says, she can't bring herself to speak them aloud. And she says, I had the feeling that if I spoke the words, I might be bringing to life some horrible, uncontrollable thing.
Yes.
And that is a cool line.
And it also buys into this whole precognition thing, doesn't it? Like she's got an inkling of what's to come.
She can kind of sense it.
Yeah,
But she does. So this is when she does. She speaks the words from the shroud, and we get this fantastic closing moment where the poor old mummy crumbles into dust. And you're absolutely right, it's very Dracula.
It is.
But holy shit, this is a cool moment. The effects are brilliant.
Really well done, isn't it? It's really good. It kind of, it's one of those moments, it makes you feel sad for the monster. Despite all the horrible things he's done.
It's probably because he's got a sad little mouth.
Probably because he's got a sad little mouth, and I'm a bit of a soft touch when it comes to things like that. But yeah, maybe, sort of like, oh, he looks like a little crying baby. Oh, But also, I think you said that she had to be rescued. You said that Claire had to be rescued.
Yeah.
I think it's also worth noting that she does actually kill the monster.
Do you know what? You're right. I think I sort of remembered a bit more, the guys sort of bursting in, to the rescue kind of. But you're absolutely right, actually. She is the one with all of the sort of agency and power in this denouement.
And it's so rare, isn't it, to be able to say about a Hammer film, she killed the monster.
Yeah.
So in fact, I'm trying to think how many women have actually killed the monsters so far.
I can't think of any off the top of my head. There might be them, but I can't bring one to mind.
They might have been there at the sort of, the climactic scene, but the actual death blows were often just delivered by the male characters. I think this may be the first time she killed the monster.
Yeah.
So, there isn't that, again, is slightly progressive, isn't it, for Hammer?
And I like...
for any British film at the time.
I like that it's from a place of, like, knowledge as well.
Yes, exactly.
She is this learned woman. She is a linguist professionally, and it is her ability to speak those words, to be able to read this ancient language from the Shroud, that gives her the power to do it.
She doesn't just stove his head in with a shovel.
No, or like push him off a cliff or something.
Or the bloke way of doing things, basically.
Yeah.
Just whack him in the head with a thing. She actually, like you say, she does it from her intelligence, from her knowledge. Her power is her knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's so refreshing, isn't it, in these kind of films?
Yeah, you're right.
Even today, I think.
Cool.
I think even today, I think that's still relatively rare.
Yeah.
It does happen, but, a lot of times, even now, when we do see women sort of getting the upper hand in films, it is usually through an act of violence.
Yes.
Whereas I think in this, it is an act of intellect.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it absolutely is. It's really cool.
More of that, please. More of that. I like that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And like I say, the effects of the mummy crumbling to dust are chef's kiss.
Really good, isn't it? It's really good. Again, those wizards are brave for the last time.
Yeah.
Sort of pulling magic out of nothing.
Yeah.
There's tiny budgets and they go and do something as wonderful as that.
I know. It does look very cool.
So good.
So let's round off, as we always do. We'll talk about some favourite moments. I would say that the mummy's demise is one of mine. It's right up there.
I think that was going to be on our list, both of us, even before we started swapping notes, basically.
Easily,
that was easily going to be there. Oh, yeah.
But I've got a few, and it's really nice, actually, to come out the end of a mummy movie and be like, actually, I've got loads of famous moments to discuss.
Yes, yeah.
There's an extremely cool bit when they first go into the tomb and Sir Basil is kind of digging in the sand on the floor of the tomb and sort of unearths the body. And this is... another really amazing looking effect, because unearths the body and the shroud. That reveal is incredible. It's very shocking, and the mummy itself, the mummified little boy, because he's not wrapped in bandages, he's just had the shroud put over him.
That's right. Yes.
That is very cool. And then when you see him later and they've sort of covered him, he's like, you can see that he's like a child. He's like really little.
Yeah.
The body is really little. And all of those moments around the sort of the discovery of the prince's body and that reveal as they dig him out of the sand, I just thought were beautifully done.
Quite right.
Another is a line from Paul, and this is going back to when he tells off his dad.
Yeah.
So he's telling off his dad for being a git, and he's bigging up Sir Basil. And this is what I was saying earlier about when he says, he's worth 2 of you, but he actually says 10 now. I'm looking back at my notes. So the quote is, it's amazing. He's like mocking his dad and at the same time sort of saying how brilliant Sir Basil is. 3 cheers for Preston. Give him a knighthood. And then he says, he hasn't got your millions, but he hasn't got a penny, but he's worth 10 of you. I'm like, oh,
yes, go for it. Don't hold back. That's brilliant. And the mocking would have hurt Preston more than anything else.
Exactly that.
He would not have liked anyone, least of all his son, mocking his ambitions and his lust for power and glory and all the rest of it. And that's what he's basically doing there. He's saying this man is much better than you because he's an actual scientist. Mm-hmm. He's a historian. Mm-hmm. He cares. You don't. All you care about is money and power.
Yeah, and reputation.
Yeah.
I know. And then the other we've already really sort of spoken about, but it's also directed as Preston, the old git. And it is the one that we've already mentioned. So from Barbara, I know how it suffers when this happens to you. It's like...
yeah, good old Barbara. Barbara knows not only how to stick the knife in, but where to stick it and how long to twist it for. She
Absolutely.
is brutal. But like I say, 26 years of marriage to that man
This
would
is
make
it.
anybody brutal, wouldn't it? You know?
Absolutely. By the end of this film, she is so over it, and I really like it.
She's so bloody sick of him. You almost wondered, did she come all the way out to Egypt just on the hope that he might actually meet a sticky end? You know? Just to finally.
She's like, well, I don't want to miss that.
Exactly. Who would?
How about you, Kev? What are your favourite moments?
Well, I would certainly second all of those that you just suggested. They are terrific. And I think most of mine we've actually spoken about as well. There's that lovely character moment from Michael Ripper when Longbarrow realises that he means nothing to Preston after all, and that he's going to be abandoned to his own fate. Lovely bit of underplaying by Michael Ripper.
It's amazing.
Just brilliant. The meltdown at the end, love it. Absolutely brilliant. Love just the whole Barbara's arc, just watching her slowly turning the tables on her horrible hubby.
Yes.
You know, that I didn't enter the tomb line. One of those punch the air moments, you know, it's like, I don't care anymore. I didn't enter the tomb. You did.
Exactly.
You pay the price. I'm just here to spectate now.
And what is so lovely about that line is, you know, you mentioned earlier how when they first arrive and he's, you know, bossing people around and, you know, sort of lapping up everybody's attention, and the sort of almost half forgets that she's even there.
Yeah.
And so it's not like she would have ever been even invited into the tomb, whether she'd wanted to go or not.
Exactly.
And so it is so lovely. It's such a gleeful moment of like, well, I didn't go in because, you know,
you wouldn't let
it's not
me.
like I was asked.
Yeah.
So, you know, you just went off and you went in and now you're in trouble and I'm not. So thank you.
Quite right. Absolutely. What wonderful moment. Wonderful performance, wonderful moment. And the other thing we mentioned earlier was the death of Harry, which is really so grim. So grim. You got like acid thrown all over him and then the place catches fire. I mean, my God, that boy suffers. He really does.
Do you know who did the stunt for that, Kev? Because
I
that
don't
was
offhand.
really something.
It's really something, isn't it? Yeah. I don't know. He may well have been Eddie Powell as well. You know, sort of,
maybe.
He was in the suit and then he got out of it and did the stunts. I don't know. But I'd like to know. It's very good.
It's very good.
Very good. Really good.
Yeah, scary stuff. So how did this one do commercially for Hammer? Obviously, we're on our third Mummy film. Was there still an appetite for them in 1967?
It's hard to tell, really, because it was released with Frankenstein Created Woman. And that was, you know, based on the title alone, let alone the promise of another Hammer Frankenstein with Peter Cushing.
Of course.
Meant that it was going to get decent box office. Whether that the Mummy Shroud played any part in that is hard to tell, to be honest. We know from talking about Frankenstein Created Woman last week that it made a small loss in the States, but it did better here, that double bill. So I think, you know, it did okay for them. But I think at this point they must have realised there wasn't a great deal left to say with the Mummy anymore. And this was the last of their traditional Mummy films. The next one, the final one, would be, that wouldn't come around until 1971. It was Blood from the Mummy's Tomb, which is, I think, is an extraordinary film. It goes off in a completely different
love
direction.
it so much. I'm so excited to talk about that one when we get to it.
It's a terrific film. Very underrated in some quarters. I really love it. And I think they sort of looked, when they thought, well, they had the rights to, we'll talk more about this when we get there, Bram Stoker's Jewel of the Seven Stars. And they thought, well, it's a mummy film, but it's not mummy story, but it's not like the mummy stories we've been making before. We can do something new now. And I think at the end of the Mummy Shroud, they must have thought, well, there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
How many more times could we bring a mummy back and then just have him go on the rampage murdering people?
Yeah, exactly. You know, the same old mistakes made by all the white people going over.
Exactly. You know? Yeah. We've made our point there. We don't have to keep hammering that one home. So let's move on and do something different. And that's what they did to great effect.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm really delighted at the end of the Mummy's Shroud that, because as you say, this is the last of the kind of quote unquote classic mummy films, and not being a huge fan of either of the last two. I'm so glad that there is one of the classic ones that I've actually really, really liked.
Really enjoyed, yeah.
So actually, let's come on to talk about rankings. And I'll go first because I'm going to pop this in upper and like quite relatively high upper, I think. Like, I really, really had a great time with this. And I think my expectations were a little low, sort of thinking like, oh God, not another mummy film. And I came out, I was like, actually, that was really good. So yeah, I'm confident in putting this in my upper rankings.
Well, I think it's quite nice that after 2 films where we came to blows. I mean, my God, you thought we were nice to each other on the microphone. You should have seen the carnage afterwards where we just laid into each other like, you bloody idiot, you know nothing.
Yeah, my cast comes off next week.
I tell you what, that Becky, she's a bloody dirty fighter. She really is. Don't mess with her.
It's true.
Don't mess with her.
It's true. I'm a biter. It's true.
And the rest. Yeah, oh my God. But it's lovely to be back on the same page because, yes, I'm putting it in upper. I'm putting it lower upper because of that bloody prologue. That's the only reason why. And, maybe because the makeup effects aren't quite so good. Not quite as good. But it's definitely an upper class film for me, an upper tier film for me. I think it's been underrated in some quarters, and I will die on that hill. I think this is a really enjoyable film.
Definitely, same here. I mean, I would definitely go back and watch this one again.
Definitely, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think I'd ever watch, I know I would never watch Curse from the Mummy's Tomb ever again.
No.
I'm getting on in years now. There are fewer years ahead of me than there are behind, and I don't think I want to fill them up with films like Curse from the Mummy's Tomb. Says the man who spends most of his evenings ploughing through the streaming services looking for the shittiest films he can find just so he can feel better about himself, So, at least I'm not you.
Thanks for listening to Hammer Time. We'll be back next week with an absolutely incredible sci-fi horror from Hammer, Quatermass and the Pit from 1967. If you're watching along, you can pick it up on DVD and Blu-ray from Hammer and Studio Canal. To check out the full list we'll be covering throughout the podcast, head to evolutionofhorror.com/hammer. We'd love to hear from you, so please send us questions or comments for upcoming mailbag episodes. Drop us an email to hammer@evolutionofhorror.com. You can follow the Evolution of Horror Network on Instagram at EOH_network and on BlueSky at Evolution of Horror. You can follow me on Instagram and BlueSky at Bunny Darke, and on Letterboxd I'm Becky Darke. And Kev, where can people find you and your work online?
EOFF-TV, Encyclopedia of Fantastic Film and Television. That's my website, EOFF-TV.com. You can find a EOFF-TV review where I occasionally, not as often as I used to, post reviews of these kind of films. You can find me on social media, BlueSky, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and Letterboxd, all as EOFF-TV.
Lovely. Don't forget to rate and review us on your podcast app of choice. Thank you for listening, and join us again next week for another episode of Hammer Time.